Hi, you're listening to Phil DeBella, and this is FlashCast by PDB. Today, I want to talk about what engaged employees do differently, and it's something that I get asked a lot. The difference between an engaged employee versus somebody who's disengaged. And of course, we all know that, and it's common sense, that an engaged employee is going to perform better and do better for the organization. But let me start by saying that the key to me for engaged employees all starts about understanding that whole of person turns up to work. In many situations, we expect that just the professional person turns up to work. However, it's somebody's life, as I keep saying in all the other flashcasts, is made up of personal, professional, and family. So if you're looking for engaged employees, make sure that you are addressing and assisting people to be the best that they can be, professionally, personally, and obviously from a family perspective. So keep that in mind as the theme, that an engaged employee is very well balanced and harmonious in all areas of their life, personally, professionally, and family. They have goals set personally, professionally, and family, and they understand that in order to perform at their best and be completely engaged in anything they're doing, that their life has to be in order. And we talk about that in being in harmony. So let's have a look at some of the traits that engaged employees do differently. And why do we do this and why is it important? Well, let me give you some stats from Gallup. The research shows that actually only 15% of worldwide employees are totally engaged, 15%. Now, when I first had a look at this, I thought, geez, that sounds very low. Can it be possible? Because there are some amazing businesses out there. However, when you start talking to people, you realize that a lot of people just turn up to make up the numbers. And what I mean by that is they're turning up from their perspective because they need a job, and they need a job to make money so that they can have a lifestyle. To me, an engaged employee is not turning up for a job to make money. Of course, they need to. But engaged employees actually dedicated to deliver. And it's something that I talk about and have done so for many years across DeBella Coffee, is that what we want is people that are dedicated to deliver. So the way I can rate whether my employees are engaged or not is if they are totally and committed to dedicating to deliver, and deliver internally, deliver within the team members, and deliver obviously to the customer. So some of the things that I notice when people are dedicated to deliver and engaged, that despite their challenges and barriers, they don't let problems become an excuse. So when somebody's totally engaged and they're dedicated, they see problems as opportunity. They see problems as an opportunity to deliver their best. And by delivering their best, they're actually creating amazing, service, which I call, which I say is the fundamental part of any sort of transaction. And specifically what I mean there is to over deliver on a customer's expectation. So when problems actually occur, these are opportunities for people, for employees that are completely engaged, to over deliver, to exceed a customer's expectation. And that's when you get brilliance in the organization. So that's one thing. The first thing that I see is an engaged employee doesn't let problems become an excuse, and it doesn't allow them to not perform. It's actually the opposite. They see the problem as an opportunity to deliver their best. Number two is that they seek always to operate at their best. And what I mean by that, and I talk about it, is being better today than yesterday. Because, of course, we are going to have some bad days. But they turn up and they say, today I'm going to be better than what I was yesterday. And tomorrow I'm going to be better than what I was today. And what it is it actually becomes part of their operating memorandus, is that they're always striving to be at their best. And something that I always finish the flashcards with is, be the best you can be. And this means that, it doesn't mean that you're always going to operate at your best, but what it does mean is that you're always going to seek to perform the best you can. And you have a look, in particular, around people's strengths. Now, somebody that's doing that knows their strengths, but is constantly working on their weaknesses, or shadows, as my wife Jana likes to call them. They know their strengths. They're very aware of their strengths, but they are constantly making sure that their weaknesses or their shadows are being worked on so they can actually perform better and better every day. Number three, they're intentional about their engagement. They're very conscious. They have a plan. They work independently. They work proactively. They work with people around them. They take people on a journey. That, to me, is what engaged employees do, is that they can work independently, they can work proactively, but they can also take people on the journey. They're constantly looking around them and say, hey, I am because we are. And it's a real Ubuntu saying, Ubuntu being an African saying, I am because we are. They're constantly working around them to help, people around them strive better, not just themselves. And one of the last things, there's many, but, one of the key ones is that to take accountability for their performance. And to me, this is one of the most important traits of an engaged employee is that they're always accountable. They always hold themselves accountable. And by holding themselves accountable, that actually allows them to make others accountable and expect others to be accountable. So these are really some, 4 highlights that I see in engaged employees. But, moving on to the next part of it to me is let's talk about is engagement the responsibility of just the employee, or who is responsible? Well, let me tell you that it is part of a manager's job to make sure that you have engaged employees. If you look at the Gerber model of technicians, managers and entrepreneurs. And I'm going to do a flashcast later on about this, about managing up, because I've had some great questions on how do you manage up, not just manage down. But that'll be a separate flashcast. But in this case, manager's job is to make sure that the team is engaged. And a manager does this by obviously being very, very clear with the vision of why everyone's turning up and what they're doing, but also gives very clear parameters. And I call this obviously communication, because as I've always said, poor communication is the common denominator of failure. And therefore, it is a manager's responsibility to ensure that the team has every opportunity to emotionally engage. Of course, you can't make people emotionally engage. You need to provide the environment, the surroundings, and the opportunity for them to emotionally engage. And the way to do this is to be very clear on the vision so that everyone knows the destination or why they're turning up, whether it's that day, that week, that month, that year. Give the parameters and then support. And to me, quality managers do that. They provide the vision or the destination. They give the parameters or the sides of the river and the bank. They provide the bank. And then they're there to support people on the journey. And what happens here is that you actually get unity, you get engagement, you get people turning up, and you get people dedicated to deliver. What I find is most people, the traditional boss, let's call it, uses language like, you give me this and behave like that. I did this because you did this, and that sort of doesn't work. And from my experience, what really good people do, what really good managers do is they ask questions, or they provide. And my discussion for me typically, rather than saying to somebody, you give me this and I'll behave like that, my language is, are you clear on where we need to get, and tell me what I can do to help? One of my favorite sayings that I use a lot these days is, do you know what winning looks like? And what can I do to help you win? And I'm turning the conversation back to the employee. And what that does is it forms this engagement, it forms this trust. And I find that works. And I've always said it, poor communication, common denominator failure. So in typical ways, while their intention can be good, if we don't clearly communicate or choose our words right, then everything falls down around us. And I think that's a real key nugget to take away, that it's not only about setting your intention, it's not only setting what your motivation is, which is a big part of emotional intelligence, understanding somebody's intention or motivation. It's then got to be executed with communication or by communication. So whilst you might have a great intention, if you can't clearly communicate or articulate that intention, then what you find is things start to fall fall down around you, and can I tell you that organizations that don't have engaged employees are always setting themselves up for failure. And it might not be today or tomorrow, but it's certainly going to fail, certainly at some point, if your employees are not engaged. What normally happens is the snowflake effect, that one starts falling, they all fall. And organizations that are strong actually don't keep falling. They rebuild themselves. In an organization where your employees engaged, a lot of people self-select out if they're not the right people. So the benefits are huge when it comes to obviously having an employee engagement. And of course, the big one is we spend so much time at work, and our employees spend so much time at work that we want them to be engaged. If they're not engaged, then they don't perform. They don't perform. People are unhappy, and nobody wants to work in an unhappy, surrounding or environment. And I certainly don't want people turning up to work being unhappy. It's not productive, but it's just not our natural being. People generally want to be happy. And if you can provide that environment, or if you can provide the opportunity for that environment, then you're going to have success in your workplace. So engaged employees is something that we should all be striving for. There's some great work being done around Gallup. My wife, Jana DeBella, does a lot of work around mindset that creates engaged employees, and she works with employees, she works with managers, and a lot of the stuff that we talk about that I've just covered now comes from her and through her findings. And of course, myself, I've had over 400 staff at any one time. These are the common traits and things that I see that I've just shared with you on what I see works and doesn't work. Now, till next time, you've been listening to Phil DeBella. This is FlashCast by PDB. Go and be the best you can be.